Diva. Ever since the Omnic crisis, Korea is routinely attacked, every couple of years or so by this massive Omnic that comes out of the sea, and these mecha pilots come out to defend the country. For decades, Korea used drones to fight them off, but then one day when this Omnic monstrosity reappeared, it had this ability to jam all their communications, and so Korea was forced to employ pilots to be able to fight the threat. And so when they were looking at who the best candidates to pilot these mech suits were, they decided to turn to the professional gamers of Korea because of their abilities and their gameplay strategies and their APM, and so Diva is sort of considered to be the best gamers in Korea to be a member of the squad. And so she's in this squad with these other pilots who, have similar skills like her. There's some other gamers, and then you've got like pilots or like a F1 driver. When we were designing Arisa, we wanted to create this character that sort of pushed the visual design language of Overwatch. And so when you look at her, she's quadrupedal, she has really interesting design elements, and she sort of doesn't look like any other hero we've made before, and certainly doesn't look like a lot of the other robot or Omnic heroes that we've created before. But because of that, there were some challenges. We found that it was difficult to relate to her because some aspects were so unique. And I remember that we were in a brainstorm, and we were always talking about who Arisa is, what was she built for. We had this idea that she was kind of like a police enforcer for the city of Nimbani. But I had this idea, what if Arisa was actually built by a child, and the character of Ify appeared. She's this young genius AI roboticist who decided that because she was inspired by all these stories of heroes, that she could build her own hero. And so she took kind of the pieces of this old mech and then improved them, added a personality core. And when you think about Arisa, thinking about this character Ify really helps to bind the story ideas together. You could see Arisa as this character that was made by this idealistic young girl. Arisa in the story of Overwatch has sort of just been switched on a month or so ago. So she's still really learning about the world around her and learning what it means to be a part of that. Kind of reminiscent of another hero, Reinhardt, and one of the fun things about that is that Arisa really looks up to Reinhardt. We joke that Arisa and Ify probably sat in the lab together watching kind of cartoons or seeing stories about the old Overwatch. And one thing is that a lot of Arisa's emotes and her animations are sort of callbacks to Reinhardt. In fact, she even says some of his lines. Arisa is voiced by Sherelle Skeet. Reinhardt. He is the first hero that I worked on. We were trying to come up with the story for this character who uses a big shield, has this giant rocket hammer, and is wearing this crusader armor, just armored head to toe, like a medieval but also futuristic knight. And we had this idea, he's so big and larger than life that we wanted a character that fit that. And we drew inspiration from kind of the Don Quixote story. He's currently the oldest character in the Overwatch hero lineup. And he sort of has seen it all. He's been fighting ever since the early days, and was sort of forced into retirement, and now he's freelancing around Europe trying to right wrongs. And we have this idea that he's seen so much, and he probably should hang it up. Maybe he's taken a few too many knocks on his head, but he's this guy who still feels like he has so much to do. One thing you can see is in some of the stories, he'll have his armor off, and you can just see the wreckage of 3 decades of combat on his body. He's just scarred, and he has cuts and bruises all the time. Reinhardt is voiced by Darren DePaul. Roadhog. Roadhog is actually an older character. So Roadhog lived in the Outback before everything kind of fell apart. And so for him, when he sees Junkertown and he sees what's become of his home, it's very sad for him. Roadhog has also had to find a way to survive in this cutthroat, unrelentingly harsh wasteland. And so that's really changed him. He was the sort of character who just wanted to be left alone to kind of live on his farm, but now he's had to do things to survive in this environment, and he's really become a much darker character. Roadhog is voiced by Josh Petersdorf. Winston. We're always coming back to Winston to look at the kind of emotional center of the Overwatch universe, which is really amusing when you think about it, because Overwatch is a story about Earth, and we like to explore kind of the diversity of Earth and all these different places and heroes from different backgrounds. But the one character, perhaps appropriately, who carries all of this is the gorilla, and he's not even from Earth, he's from the moon. He's sort of taken in all these lessons and all these feelings that people have. They started as stories, but now they're things that he truly believes in and fights for. Winston is voiced by Crispin Freeman. Zarya was created so that we could have this really strong female character, and we were inspired by kind of Olympic weightlifters. It must have been around that time that, we were watching competition and we thought, like, wouldn't this be a cool character? And so we came up with this idea of this person who was about to prove that she was the strongest in the world. But at that time, Omnix attacked her home in Russia, and she decided that it was more important to her to fight than to compete. And so she never had the moment to kind of get that validation that she had trained her whole life for. So instead, she gave it all up and she became just another soldier on the front line. Zarya is voiced by Dolya Gavansky. Last but not least are the support heroes. For him, Roadhog has also had to find a way to survive in this cutthroat, unrelentingly harsh wasteland, and so that's really changed him. He was the sort of Josh Petersdorf, Winston, and we like to explore kind of the diversity of Earth and all these lessons created so that we have a character, and so it was more important to her to fight than to. Arya is voiced by a hero in the game. When we were developing Farah, we knew are the support heroes.